Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We are the Morehead-Cain scholars who've been working here this summer. Our task was sustainability, and we'll tell you all about it. I see so many familiar faces here, and we're so grateful to each and every one of you for being a part of it here, and we can't wait to share what we found. And so to start off with some introductions, if you don't already know us.
Hi, I'm Misha. I'm a neuroscience and global studies double major with a chemistry minor on the pre-med track.
Hi, I'm Mariel. I'm a biology major with a chemistry minor, also on the pre-med track.
My name is Elise. I'm a public policy and history major with a minor in French on the pre-law track.
And I'm Surya. I'm a business and computer science major with a minor in philosophy, politics, and economics.
And we're part of, like I said, the Morehead-Cain Scholar Team. So the Morehead-Cain Scholarship is at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and it's 4 fully funded years of education, but we also have summer programming. So this summer is civic collaboration. So scholar teams of 4 to 5 scholars about head out all across the US and work on a civic issue. That varies from housing to sustainability to hurricane relief. And we were lucky enough to work on sustainability. So these are our findings. And these are the 3 tasks sort of within the realm of sustainability, because we recognize sustainability is kind of a broad term. So our first one was, how can Prospect significantly increase the number of residents who recycle? We hover at about 45% right now. Second, will it be cost effective for the city to own its own streetlights or go solar/LED? And third, what are the trade-offs of moving Prospect's fleet operation to electric or hybrid vehicles? And a special process of our project was that we spent almost entirely the first 3 weeks interviewing people. We tried not to do any research until we sort of gotten an idea of the community. We talked to residents, we talked to elected officials, policy experts. We also hopped on quite a few Zoom calls, so we got to speak with people from Wisconsin, from Colorado, from Ohio, Indiana, all over. And this presentation really would not be what it is without the interviews that we conducted. So much of this presentation and our report is made up of the wisdom and expertise of people we spoke to. So we want to lead with that. Thank you.
All right, so let's dive into the recycling section of this project. Upon arrival, the mayor gave us a number, and that number was 45%, and that is the current recycling rate of Prospect, which is already great considering the national average recycling rate is 32%. But Mayor Barnsley has a goal to reach 60%. We want to get over that 50% barrier. However, as we started talking and researching, we decided that we should start with a more short-term goal of reaching 50%. This follows really closely with the EPA, who currently are doing a program called 50 by 30, which is a 50% recycling rate nationwide by the year 2030. We hope to do this and hopefully surpass the 50% and push towards that 60% goal. To get there, we've outlined 3 key developmental areas that we think that Prospect should focus on, these being education, resources, and outreach. I'm going to dive a little further into each one of these. So starting with education, you can see here that we thoroughly enjoyed our tour to the Rumpke Recycling Facility and Landfill. Being able to see and experience what happens to these materials firsthand was probably what we would say is the best form of education. But to get a little bit more into the numbers of this, I was really astounded by when we got to this recycling facility. They told us that 98% of the materials that are currently going through this facility are then being diverted and used as recycled materials in another like within the community outside. And that is a fantastic rate to think that almost every single piece of material going through that facility is being reused is super hopeful, but also helpful. Another statistic that we found out a little more on the sad side was as we were looking out at the landfill and seeing all of this trash being piled into a hole that would later be covered and stay covered for thousands of years, was that 40% of what was in that hole could have been recycled and could have been reused. These are facts that we really think the community could see and hear, and it sticks in your brain. And we would like to write on an idea that we actually heard from Mr. Hicks, which would be informational messaging on posters and signs that we could put around Prospect with these messages, while also encouraging more Rumpke visits. The second developmental area we'd like to talk about is resources. We found so many resources that are at Prospect's disposal, and it is really just about how you guys choose to use them. So some of the ones that we would recommend are, first of all, this black screen up here is for the Kentucky hazardous waste drop-offs. There's actually a grant that you can apply for through the state of Kentucky to be able to hold one of these hazardous waste drop-offs. We talked to many of the Prospect residents, and this seemed to be a concern and something that they would like to facilitate within your community. And so that was nice to learn about this. The application deadline for this past year was April 1st, so this would be a grant that you would have to apply for the year 2026, but we highly recommend that. Next, we have up here our No Waste campaign. We think that a similar campaign strategy within Prospect would be really helpful to get those materials out there, to get people to see those statistics and really know their waste. And thirdly, on here, we have the Waste Wizard website and online facility that we have been looking at. Waste Wizard is really awesome. People can put in the product that they're looking at to see if it is recyclable, compostable, or if they should put that in the trash. It would be about $4,000 to implement yearly for the city, but we think that it could be a great resource to pop on the city website, and then people could just utilize that throughout the year. Lastly, we want to talk about outreach. Of course, education and resources are great to have, but they really don't do their job unless we can get them out into the community. So first on here, we have an example of a mailer. We have heard from lots of city residents that having a tangible source of this information, what can be recycled, what shouldn't be recycled, and also when those recycling pickup days are, would be super helpful. So we think that sending out a mailer once or twice a year would be very helpful. We learned that it's about a $2,500 cost, but to do that about twice a year, we recommend using the money for that. Secondly, on here, we have the Oops Tag program that we actually learned about from the Louisville Metro Waste Management Program. This is where there are some workers who will come around before Rumpke comes to pick up your recycling, and they would look in there and make sure that you have recycled well and that you have the right materials in there. And if you do, you will get a green tag. And if you have a couple of items that are amiss that probably shouldn't be in your recycling, you'll get a yellow oops tag, a little warning that maybe we should watch out for this. But then if you definitely have something in there that shouldn't be recycled that Rumpke will not pick up, you will get a red tag, such as if you decided to put your kiddie pool in the recycling or your microwave in the recycling, which we did actually see at the Rumpke facility. This would take a little bit of conversation and coordination with Louisville Waste Management, but last we spoke to them, they'd be willing to discuss this. And then thirdly on here, we have a little flyer from many of you I see attended our community conversation. Nisha's going to touch on that a little bit later, but I'd like to talk about what we've been discussing with the mayor of starting a sustainability working group or a community conversation working group that gets together and really discusses even more ways than what we've come up with to reach out and get information to the community.
Yeah, so in talking with residents here in Prospect, we learned that community is very valued, but sometimes this community can be restricted to certain neighborhoods or HOA areas. So we wanted to bridge these gaps while also integrating sustainability, which is why we came up with these community conversations. Community conversations are just a series of events where any Prospect resident can come together and informally discuss sustainability initiatives and ways to make Prospect more environmentally friendly. It's really just to have an established space and forum to make sustainability and environmental consciousness part of the culture here in Prospect. And we really intend for these events to kind of be established and consistent. So we created a Prospect Community Conversations Toolkit, which is just a document outlining planning logistics, event promotion strategies, and specialized event ideas that can be implemented. It's really intended for a member of the community who's very passionate about sustainability to take on and spearhead future events. It lays it all out there very easily and tries to make it as easy and accessible to host these events for Prospect residents. And as Mariel was mentioning, the future of such community conversations could then feed into a sustainability working group, a group of people really dedicated to making Prospect more sustainable. So these community conversations would just kind of be like a baby version of a working group, not very much working, but really just getting that community conversation going, have people influence each other's behavior while speaking about things they want to know more about, some things they do already know. And this can also just be another source of volunteers for the community. If people are consistently brought together to discuss sustainability, then feed into a group of people who would want to do other projects for Prospect, like being more involved with the parks or being involved in kid planning activities that teach them about recycling and so forth. So we actually held, as Mary mentioned, our first community conversation this past Saturday at Captain's Quarters, and it was such a great experience and a huge success. We had a great turnout and some wonderful conversations were had. So the first half of the event was more just very informal. People came, they had a meal, they introduced themselves to people they didn't know. But the second half was a structured discussion activity. We had conversation starters and placards at each table where we had people read the starter of the conversation starter and write down any initial ideas and thoughts they had on it. Each conversation starter and prompt was related to recycling or sustainability. And after writing down their ideas in a sticky note, they were able to share with the members at their table what they thought. And it was just incredible to watch the conversations that would bloom out of these prompts. People were just very curious and very excited to share what they know and what they want to know more about. And it overall made people feel more comfortable about talking about recycling their stuff back at home. And so it's changes like these, making it part of the culture, making people feel more comfortable with sustainability and their behaviors at home, that I think could really influence a positive change here in Prospect, and we hope to see more events as such here in Prospect.
Nice to finally see everyone's faces. So we're gonna move into the second part of our project, and this is in regards to the solar streetlights. But more broadly, we want to say sustainable streetlights because another option that we were exploring were LED lighting. So over the 8 weeks, we've kind of looked at different options for streetlights, mainly in regards to the utility provider, local gas and electric, or LG&E. The city of Prospect is currently being charged for about 500 streetlights and 8,300 kilowatt hours. And basically we're being charged almost $500,000 each year for both the streetlight fixtures and then also the electricity costs. And after exploring this, we've realized that the city of Prospect doesn't have any control over costs, over operations. We're kind of at the whims and fancies of LG&E for, delays and maintenance timelines. So throughout this, we've kind of come up with 5 guiding questions. And at the heart of it lies, should we buy our streetlights from LG&E, or should we stay under contract and look towards more sustainable options like LED and solar street lighting? And, as we kind of go through this presentation, we'll address a lot of tangential questions that kind of have arisen, including the cost effectiveness, the financing options, and kind of where to kind of pilot these LED and solar streetlights. So one of our favorite parts of this entire project, as Alicia mentioned, has been interviewing people, and we've been able to talk to people not here in Prospect. Mr. Steve Marshall was a great asset to us as we kind of looked at the streetlights, but also talked to people across the country. And we looked at 3 main cities: Boulder, Colorado, Decorah, Iowa, and Beechwood, Ohio. And we talked to various people. We talked to electrical engineers, to communication managers, to legal experts. So a wide variety of people for a wide variety of cities, different utility providers, different populations, different challenges. And through each of this, we kind of learned a lesson. For Boulder, Colorado, they were able to successfully municipalize 4,400 streetlights, saving $1.1 million annually due to the municipalization. Decorah, Iowa failed to municipalize their streetlights on 2 separate occasions, but through that we learned, how we could deal with any public backlash or outcry to people opposed to municipalization. And then finally, we have Beechwood, Ohio. They're most similar to Prospect's situation. I know they have a population of 13,000, but it is on the smaller side as well. But they started their solar streetlight pilot program really recently. They've had great success, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit deeper as we go through this. So after talking to people across the country and here in Prospect, we've come up with a three-pronged recommendation, and it starts with the municipalization of streetlights. As you can see on, I guess, your left, LG&E, after looking at kind of the billing data and the tariff rates listed on their website, they are currently overcharging us by 186%, all the way up to 6,718% over our actual electricity costs. And it's a pretty large number, you know? So what we've found is the best solution is to ultimately take control of our streetlights through acquisition. After we were conversing with our contact, Jennifer Len, she said, you know, due to the city's longstanding relationship with LG&E, we wouldn't have to buy out the contract. We could just simply break away from them, a clean break. With that being said, there needs to be more conversations with LG&E, as Ms. Jennifer Len wasn't very responsive to our follow-up emails. But with that being said, from our initial analysis, Prospect could cut its $450,000 annual cost by up to 80%. In terms of operations and maintenance savings, that would be 97%. And in order to municipalize the streetlights, the best way to do this, we believe, is through creating leverage with our utility company. Like I mentioned, Jennifer Len wasn't very responsive. We've been here 8 weeks and have been unable to get her on the phone with us. She's responded to 2 of our emails, and thus we need to create a solid, strong relationship with the utility provider if we want to do what we want to do. So we looked to Boulder, Colorado, who had similar problems with their utility provider, Xcel Energy, and looked at kind of the ways they created a leverage within their city. To do so, they utilized other towns within Colorado who kind of supported Boulder as they looked to municipalize, and also involved the Public Service Commission, who in turn came in and created pressure on the utility provider as well. They also explored the concepts of like eminent domain, so that, you know, potentially acquiring the land for the streetlights. Ultimately, they didn't have to go through on any of their threats, but just the fact that they could make the threat and create that leverage was so beneficial as they looked to municipalize. Similarly, we can do that in Prospect, work with the Kentucky Public Services Commission to potentially put pressure on LG&E, and local Metro has also been looking to kind of create this pressure, so perhaps a collaboration with them and their administration would be a beneficial thing to look into for the future. And finally, the solar streetlight pilot program, we'll get into this a little bit more, but essentially we want to start piloting solar streetlights in low traffic areas. So that would be local parks, maybe near City Hall where maintenance is easily accessible, and kind of areas with little to no shade, areas that are really accessible to sunlight to mitigate the risks of it potentially going out. So on the top picture with the blue and green dots, we have a picture from the Geographic Information System of Boulder, Colorado. And it's called a GIS system. We think it's going to be Prospect's best friend if it looks to pilot those solar streetlights, but it's super easy to kind of map out the locations of each of the streetlights, track progress. For example, the city of Boulder is looking to track how many LED conversions it's making, and it's displayed with the different colors. The green are successful, the blue are in progress. And similarly, again, we can do this in Prospect. We took the Louisville GIS system on the picture in the bottom and, you know, identified Prospect, identified some potential placements for those solar streetlights in little to no shade areas near City Hall and parks, and that's displayed with the red dots above. Again, it's just a suggestion, but we think it would be very beneficial to use this system as we kind of move forward. In terms of the lighting providers, after speaking to people, we came up with 3 main lighting providers that would provide kind of the best support if we decided to go down the solar streetlight route, and that would be Bon Roche, Angle Planet, and Real Term Energy. Received really great reviews for all of them, and one of the benefits of going with one of those 3 lighting providers is that when you create a contract with them, they actually offer discounts as they are looking to expand into this region and into America, especially for Bon Roche, which is based in France. One of the other benefits with Fawn Roche was mentioned to us by the team in Beechwood, Ohio. They have smart lighting systems, so if there is little to no sun, if there is light overfill into, residents' homes, if there is little to no battery left in the light, if there is, rain or maintenance issues, et cetera, you can track that all from a computer or from a phone. And it's really easy to kind of modify and make changes depending on, what's going on. So again, like I mentioned in the beginning, one of the biggest questions is in regards to the cost effectiveness of this program. And to do so, we kind of built out a few financial models to hopefully prove to you that it is pretty cost effective to implement these streetlights. We used calculations from the Department of Energy and the Brewer Lab in California. So if anyone wants more information on the calculations, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. I'd be more than happy to talk about it. But in one of the took a sample of 366 streetlights, and that was the number provided to us by Jennifer Len. And after calculating the cost for all these fixtures, we came up with a number of $100,000 that's costing us for the fixtures alone, put aside the electricity. Now, if we were to be charged for the electricity for the same amount of lights, that's costing us only $3,000. A pretty hefty difference, 97%, and it's pretty striking to realize. If we were to look into acquiring the streetlight, so again, Jennifer Len mentioned we had no need to buy out the contract. We were simply looking to buy the streetlights from a lighting provider like Fawn Roche, like Engo Energy. It would cost us about $485,000, and that's using average LED prices for the Acorn light and the Cobra headlight, two of the most common light fixtures found here in Prospect. They can range anywhere from $450 to $800. Installation can range anywhere from $200 to $800. So that's giving us a total of around $485,000. LG&E is kind of looking to increase their prices by around 8.3%. We used a rate of 3% following GDP growth, and then a discount rate of 4%, which is pretty common for a municipal project. The Congressional Office of Management and Budget says a municipal project discount rate would be around 3 to 7%. And using all of these numbers, we did a discounted cash flow analysis to kind of find the net present value of $1,300 and an internal rate of return of 25.3%. The average internal rate of return for a municipal project would be around 17 to 21%. 25% exceeds this, showing that it is very cost effective and also a testament to how much LG&E is really overcharging us. And finally, we know it's a high initial upfront cost, and sometimes that can act as a deterrent. So we wanted to give a few financing options, and we identified three main categories: bonds, local incentives and grants, and contracts and agreements. So for the bonds, we identified municipal and green bonds. We'll talk a little bit more about the green bonds in the electric vehicles section, but the city of Prospect could issue municipal bonds. The current interest rates are around 4.3 to 4.5% for a rated bond for 20 to 30 year maturity. So interest rates are okay right now, so that's a potential option. Another option that we came across through talking to Samita Rao, who is a sustainability officer in Louisville Metro, she mentioned the Louisville Green Bank, and the Louisville Green Bank provides loans, credit agreements, etc., to help finance green projects and projects looking to mitigate the risk of climate change. So that's another potential financing opportunity that we recommend looking at. Secondly, we have grants and local incentives. Given today's current political environment, a lot of funding for these projects are kind of being cut on the federal level. Thus, we're recommending to look at state and local incentives and grants to really make the most of it. One of the biggest ones that we want to highlight is the Kentucky Energy Office Impact Accelerator Grant. It offers $200,000 for the ideation of a sustainable project, and then up to $1 million for the implementation of a sustainable project. Louisville also offers two separate program specific to solar street lighting. That's the Solarize Louisville Discount Program and EPAD, both of which not only provide grants supporting solar street lighting, but also provide support and help to kind of get that ball rolling. Another thing not mentioned here is philanthropies. As funding is getting cut, many cities have started to move towards independent philanthropies as a potential finance option as well. And finally, we have contracts and agreements. These are going to be done in conjunction with the lighting providers like Von Roche, Anglo Planet, and Real Term Energy. We have a tax-exempt leasing purchase. It's basically your normal lease-to-own sort of contract. And then the energy performance contracts, which are a little bit more interesting. They're lease-to-own as well, but the money that you're reinvesting into the program is through the energy savings through implementing those solar streetlights. Or those LED streetlights. Also, Louisville has a really cool program. They call it the Energy Saving Fund. All the money that they've saved through switching to sustainable projects. For example, if they switch to LED lights and saved X amount of money on energy, that would be put into a fund, and then reinvest the money into future sustainable projects. So I think it's a potential great option for the city of Prospect to further explore.
And to dive into our next and our last section, we're touching on electric fleet vehicles. This is focused on the police fleet. And this be exclusively right now non-patrol vehicles, because we recognize there's still some safety and reliability concerns with patrol vehicles. So that's what we're exploring in this section. And sort of the three things we want to go over before we dive a little bit further in. Like I said, this would be a police fleet conversion. Prospect has the opportunity to sort of be a national leader. There are other cities that have started to electrify their police fleet, but they are relatively few right now. But there would be neighbors in Michigan, Maryland, California. It's sort of a new trend that's taking off to electrify the police fleet. Second of all, charging station infrastructure is absolutely essential. You can't have EVs if they're not charged. So that's something also to consider. And last, I want to thank Councilman David Holmes for this idea. Actually, a charging station ordinance is something to explore. There's a toolkit that I'll discuss later about new commercial developments and mandating that a certain number of spots have electric vehicle charging stations.
So why should Prospect invest in electric vehicles for their fleet? Well, vehicles are modern, upcoming technology, and they provide a lot of benefits, and they have great longevity. So the three big areas are environmental benefits, performance enhancement, and cost savings. So for the environment, electric vehicles don't rely on an internal combustion engine, they rely on batteries, meaning they have minimal to zero carbon emissions. So if Prospect wants to reduce their carbon footprint, this is a great investment for them to explore. In terms of performance, electric vehicles have been shown to have a lot of different performance enhancements that kind of puts them a step above some gasoline-powered vehicles. One being that they have a quieter and smoother ride. They're a bit more discreet in terms of vehicles and contribute to less noise pollution due to their quietness. They're also better equipped to go to acceleration quicker. So gas-powered vehicles have to rev up a bit more to reach the acceleration that they want to, but electric vehicles can go from a standstill to the acceleration that they want pretty quickly, almost immediately, which is great and very impressive. And in terms of cost savings, electric vehicles have not as many moving parts as some gas vehicles do, meaning they become less burdensome than some gas vehicles are over time. Electric vehicles, they don't require oil changes, they require less brake repairs due to regenerative braking, and they don't require fuel costs. And over time, these cost savings do really add up and save a lot of money in the long run, and they're able to last longer as well, as they're healthier over time. So we understood why electric fleet vehicles are beneficial to the community, but we really wanted to visualize how Prospect would take upon this project. So we looked at quite a few models for EVs, but we really dug deep into three models, which are the Ford Mach-E GT, the Chevy Blazer, and the Ford Police Interceptor, which is a plug-in hybrid vehicle. And with three models, we compared them to the Dodge Charger, which is Prospect's Police current detective vehicle, and we took out a annual total cost of ownership comparative analysis, which we have the longer version of it in our report. But on the screen here, you can see the comparison between the Dodge Charger and the Ford Mach-E GT. We took estimated costs from EPA's fuel economy to get an estimate on the total costs per fuel for each model and miles per gallon equivalents. And it came out to be that over its lifetime, the Dodge Charger would be around $13,000, while the Ford Mach-E GT would be around $11,000 per year to own, which this $2,000 difference per year is pretty significant and quite promising, showing that investing in electric vehicles could really be a long-term investment where Prospect could save some money and really make their fleet a bit more efficient and environmentally friendly. So as Elise mentioned, you can't have EVs without having charging stations. And we recommend that Prospect invest in base level 2 chargers, which is the typical charger used for electric vehicles, which will charge a vehicle from 0 to completely full within 8 to 12 hours and installing them at Prospect City Hall for the police to charge their car. The two options, the first one would be hosting chargers through LG&E. They do offer this option, and we recommend opting for the non-networked charger, which means it's a cheaper kind of charger. It's not networked to a bunch of other chargers that LG&E will also offers people to host. And this is really fitting for the Prospect fleet. It's a smaller fleet. It's going to be privately used, not publicly used. So you don't really need the networked charger, and it'll be $30 per month to have in addition to installation costs. And installation costs really vary based on the installation option that Prospect picks. So the first option would be install only, where LG&E would come in and physically install the charger. However, a separate electrician would have to be hired to install the power source from the building to the charger. So the install only option is around $650 to $1,000 paid to LG&E, while there's separate payment to the electrician. While the second option is turnkey solutions, where LG&E would essentially address every single aspect of deployment of this charging station, from power source to the physical installation. And that can be upwards to $20,000, which, yes, is on the pricier side, but it's promising because the $20,000, that kind of price is dependent on how far the power source is to the charging station. And in this case, it's not a very long distance. The parking lot isn't very big. So it would be hopefully on the lower end of what a turnkey solution would offer. And the second option is going directly with a third-party provider for them to come in, install, and maintain these chargers. We have 3 examples of providers: ChargePoint, Blink Charging, and EVgo. They've been used by other municipalities and commercial businesses and have shown to have good successes. Essentially, it's around $5,000 on average to purchase and install physically the charging station. And these companies also offer the same 2 options, the install only or the turnkey solution. And what's also interesting is that these companies will also offer smart charging services. So they'll track in real time the energy efficiency of the charger, make sure kind of aligning them with electricity rates. So to charge the car more at times when the electricity rates are lower, and maybe less at times where electricity rates are higher. So it's really cool technology. And with charging, there is the concern, obviously, that what if the car runs out of battery and there's no charging around? The idea behind these chargers is that when the car isn't being used, it's charging. So essentially, for these sort of special vehicles, such as detective cars that are non-patrolled, they should be having sufficient amounts of charge whenever being used. And Elise will talk more about public charging.
For again, a lot of EV credits are being cut right now. The National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, which provides credits for EV vehicles and charging stations, that's future is kind of lying in jeopardy. So one of our proposed solutions are green bonds. Again, act very similar to municipal bonds in terms of interest rates and maturity. You can kind of get lower interest rates from green bonds because of something called the greenium. It's like a premium, but like a green premium. But that essentially lowers your interest rates. And again, this would be expected to kind of cover everything from the charging station to the implementation to the vehicle itself, the maintenance. Everything would kind of be covered through the issuance of these green bonds. We were a little bit nervous given today's current political landscape on the future of green bonds. A lot of corporations are kind of ditching them. But we looked into recent reports. The compound annual growth rate for a green bond is supposed to be around 11%. So still very hopeful that, you know, the momentum behind these financial vehicles will be sustained into the future. Within 2025, we've seen a lot of different cities kind of employ green bonds for billions of dollars. California, Washington, D.C., Seattle have all issued green bonds between February and June of this year, again, for billions of dollars. So very hopeful that, you know, the momentum will continue and it could be a potential solution for spec.
And to discuss a little bit of the financing potentially for charging stations, as I'm sure most of you are aware, about a decade ago, Volkswagen lied pretty badly on their environmental mitigation tests. And so they had a huge settlement to the states. It's called the environmental mitigation settlement. And so Kentucky was allocated over $3 million for light duty zero emission vehicle, that's VEV infrastructure funding. And there was almost 800,000 set aside for level 2 charging stations, which is what Misha mentioned and what we recommend. It's sort of middle of the road. Level 3 is super fast charging, but also super expensive. Level 1 is more like plug into the wall kind of charger. And up to 50% charger installation projects could be covered by these funds. We're a little bit uncertain of how that future is going to be. The last call for proposals was in May 2024, but we do recommend reaching out to Ms. Katie Littman of the Global Cabinet for Economic Development, because she's currently overseeing their EV rollout program and can provide a little more context on this. But we were told about the Volkswagen settlement by someone within the transportation cabinet, and so it is potentially a promising avenue. And then to look a little further at ordinances, like I mentioned, the Great Plains Institute has an excellent toolkit on best practices in general for EV ordinances that pertains to land use, EVs themselves. But the language we found particularly useful was about charging stations, and I included, if you look up here, Indianapolis, Salt Lake City, and Middletown, Connecticut. They all have that same kind of ordinance where it's like, if you're putting in a new commercial development of a certain size parking lot, you must have X number of EV charging stations. The closest neighbor we could find was Indianapolis to Prospect. And what was promising to us is we were like, oh, that's cool, Indianapolis has an ordinance. But when we did further research, it's now Indiana that has a statewide policy about these ordinances.
Yeah, and then as we wrap it up, we really want to just extend our thanks to all of you for welcoming us into your community. This summer would not have been the same without the wonderful people sitting out in front of us and all of the people that we got to talk to this summer. We hope that you keep us up to date on everything going on in Prospect.
Yeah, we can't wait to see what the future holds for a sustainable future. And we also have a hard copy of our final report, which is a lot heftier than this presentation. It's about 100 pages long, and that has a bunch of useful contacts of people we spoke to and would express openness to connecting more and having meetings. Also has all of our recommendations in a bit longer language, and also financial models, the community conversations toolkit, and also some useful graphics and flyers and things to share. And then
lastly, yes, we'd like to present this to the mayor and also the city council. It's a little fun project that we got to do. If you came to our community conversation, you might recognize these Post-it notes. They are indeed your handwriting and your thoughts. But we decided that we really could commemorate our time here and our community event that we had here with this little thing. And also we wanted to throw out this idea that all of the Post-it notes in this are recycled Post-it notes. Thank you.
We'll next open the floor to any questions. Also, I wanted to mention that this report will be available in an online form as well. So we'll give the link to the mayor for him to send out to anyone that's interested. And feel free to reach out to any of us who have any further questions about the report and anything in it. We're happy to answer them. So now we'll open the floor for questions.
Mission that we just presented a whole lot of information, so we are absolutely fine with emails or anything like that, because the report is pretty long, so lots to ponder.
I just want to say what you've done is you've left a lot of homework. Really put into some really smart ideas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to say, I'm just totally blown away by how thorough you all were and your beautiful presentation and just the level of detail. And you were up there without any notes and you had all this in your head.
Yeah.
I mean, it just almost, it brought me to tears. It was so impressive. So
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you for your work.
So what will next summer be for you all?
Next summer is our global summer, so we'll be globetrotting next summer. We haven't.
All at the same location or something?
No, wherever you. She's got a pretty concrete idea, the rest of us are still.
I'm hoping to go to Germany and do some family history research. Yeah.
It's also.
I was just gonna say, the students, I think, design your own
Yes.
project. Global projects.
Did you say?
Oh yeah, no, that's what the mayor said. It's all designed. Different kind of structure.
You do another summer that's like professional development.
Like we find an internship and, we get like housing and stipends for that, so it'll be funded, but it's very like workplace environment kind of opportunity, but it's up to us to find it.
So where do you want to go?
Well, for my global summer, I have zero clue. I'm still in the process of figuring that out, but the work I'd like to do is either clinical kind of research or, work with other, members of communities out there. And I can hop around. Oh, that's my project for the next coming months.
I'm thinking about Senegal, doing like some sort of reproductive health or human rights type work, but yeah, it's still very unclear that I'm trying to make sense for them.
Actually, I have an internship planned in New York with a Swiss bank called UBS. I'll be working in global wealth management and sustainable financing solutions. But currently looking to see if I could potentially be transferred to the London office, maybe get a global experience that way.
It might be a little more fun.
All gonna go a long way, that's for sure.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate you all being here. Your presentation was phenomenal, but it's been just a great privilege and pleasure for all of us to get to know you, and you really become an important part of our community. So we're going to hate to say goodbye to you all tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
So awesome. Well, I'll thank you. It's awesome. Yeah. Anywhere. Do that.